Assist officer, shots fired.
The soul of our city was pierced when police officers were ambushed in a cowardly attack.
It's just terrifying.
It breaks my heart.
For them not to have their father or husband to come home now, words can't describe the feelings.
The pain we feel may not soon pass, but my faith tells me that they did not die in vain.
What has happened in America that we end up with this type of hatred?
You're talking about generations of problems that led and contributed to what happened that night. They're not going to go away so quickly.
These 5 men gave their lives for all of us.
We love you. We will never forget you.
Thank you for joining us for this special coverage as we honor our 5 fallen heroes. Behind us, a view of our city entirely lit up in blue tonight.
It is a stark contrast from what unfolded last year. At this moment, a standoff was underway in downtown Dallas after a peaceful protest was rocked by gunfire. We would soon learn the names of the fallen officers: Officer Patrick Zamaripa, Senior Corporal Lauren Aarons, Sergeant Michael Smith, Officer Michael Kroll, and Dart Officer Brent Thompson.
The days that followed ran together. There were tears, there were prayers. A heartbroken city weathered 5 funerals in 4 days. Those memorials drew thousands. Our president and officers from all over the nation came to Dallas to honor them. Children lost their fathers, wives lost their husbands. And 1 year later, the emotions are still raw. It is a feeling you would not know until you live it. Our Marisa Vedra spoke to some women who know all too well what those families have gone through.
When tragedy strikes, first responders come running. We saw officers and EMTs rush to the scene of the Dallas ambush. But there were also first responders the cameras didn't catch, who were safely at home that night when they heard.
That time I picked up the phone and Danny's like, "You need to turn the TV on."
We decided we were going to Dallas.
2 women who came running to Parkland Hospital, the people who suffered the greatest loss.
It's difficult to bring that all back up.
Ashley Hardy and Danny Story sat with the families of Michael Smith, Michael Kroll, and Patrick Zamaripa with a single, somber goal.
One thing that we wanted to absolutely convey is that we are just like you.
Wes Hardy was known for his love of writing tickets. Ashley was his world, as were their 3-year-old twins, Cora and Caitlin.
All right, Mommy got me some radios.
Their time together ended when his unit collided with a car in Plano, and he died on July 7th, 2007.
Burying your husband at 30 and having to go through picking out a casket and flowers. It was almost like buying a car, having to pick out. It was absolutely the worst thing.
One time.
Craig Story would say his son, John Barrett, was the best-looking kid you've ever seen.
He's a very handsome man.
John Barrett was 2 on January 13th, 2010, when a school bus collided with Craig's motorcycle in Arlington. He died hours after he and Danny learned they were expecting baby number 2.
I won't lie. There were nights I begged for God to take me because I even in some ways thought my child would be better off with my parents because I didn't feel like I could do it without him. And I thought, well, I'll just take this baby with me and we'll go and be with Craig in heaven. That's what I thought.
This kind of grief is something few know, a group that 5 more families entered last July 7th. And the women let us in on their own experiences to give us a sense of what it feels like inside that first year.
Reminding myself to breathe. It wasn't even 1 day at a time. It was 1 minute at a time.
Their only reason for getting out of bed was their kids.
I circled my wagons. I chose to focus on my boys and just me.
I tell my girls all the time, you ate lots of McDonald's, you ate lots of Chick-fil-A, and you ate lots of On the Border because those were the 3 closest restaurants to our apartment.
How was it in those first days, months, to have such a personal incident be public?
Ours being accidental, it wasn't so much, but when
the coverage lasted through the funeral, when the funeral was over, the media was done. Families now, it's a continual thing, and because it was so large and so many of them at one time. There have been so many events.
It gets tiring.
It's exhausting.
They're exhausted.
Ashley says it took her 3 years to turn a corner. Then she was ready to be there for Danny when she lost Craig.
She texted, she called. How long probably before I even answered?
I don't remember.
I don't know, probably months, maybe
I was going to
even,
say maybe almost a year.
Maybe a year before I even bothered to reply to it. I mean, she was persistent.
That effort became an unbreakable bond. And just as Ashley reached Danny, they both keep in contact with the families of July 7th's victims.
End of watch.
They give them what they wanted after surviving the first year: room to breathe, with the unwavering knowledge that someone who lived their exact pain is there whenever they're ready.
We have certainly tried to be respectful of them this week, but they know, and we'll check in with them next week when we can. But we'll keep on. You know, we want them to have hope and know that they'll be okay too.
In Dallas, Marisa Vedra, Channel 8 News.
Our thanks to Danny and Ashley for sharing something so painful with us. You know, in the days after the ambush, the world responded. For every tear, there was a hug. And Dallas Police Headquarters became a place where mourners came to pray.
Our Ron Koenig joins us again. He's at DPD headquarters with much more on all of this. Ron?
John, we are now upstairs at Dallas Police Headquarters. This is the Dallas Police Museum, a place where the community can come to learn more about the rich history of the Dallas Police Department. Here's a helicopter, for example, which has been hanging here in the lobby for some time now. But as we now all know, a year ago, the history of this department took a very dark turn with the Dallas ambush, and much of that is being commemorated here. A show of support, these quilts and flowers and flags and so forth. Even here, encased in glass, you can see there are badges from officers from all over the country. Much of this arrived here a year ago. If you take a look here outside of Dallas Police Headquarters, this was the scene as they parked 2 squad cars just outside. People brought notes of encouragement, flowers, any number of things as a show of support. And we are wondering a year later what happened to those artifacts and mementos. Here's Marcus Moore with that story.
Right, around 400 posters, a lot of rosary beads. I just feel the love. I just feel the love when I walk in the room.
He's from Australia.
Yep.
There was a time when tears would simply flow down her cheek.
We have tissues down here. We need tissues down here.
Jo Gadai spending nearly every day since the DPD ambush working in this cold basement room at Dallas's Central Library.
Because the last time you and I spoke, I remember you said that you were crying a lot.
I cried a lot just about every time I came into this room.
Surrounded by things meant to comfort amidst the tears. In the days after the ambush, and by the thousands, people came to police headquarters leaving items in a show of sorrow, and as it turns out, an act of love.
And there are a lot of hearts in the collection, and I think that's what people were trying to express.
An expression through handmade items, cards and letters, some 10,000 of those.
Anchorage, Alaska, from Anchorage Police Department.
And there are battered and faded toys like this one.
I have looked at that dinosaur probably hundreds of times and thought about who is the little child who left this. It's well loved, that toy, and I think it means a lot to whoever left it.
A year after the July 7th tragedy, items are still showing up. The Hot Springs, Arkansas Police Department sending this bench, bearing the names and faces of each officer that passed away that night. It's among the items the library's team will continue sorting as they preserve history.
Fallen brother, Patrick Zamarripa.
Of course, it is not the first time the library has played such a role. They preserve history in much the same way after President John F. Kennedy's assassination. In a sense, this team is simply carrying the torch at a time when Dallas is once again healing. And it brings us back to that familiar word, love.
I was going to say these items kind of represent that kindness.
Yeah, because there are other people out there that feel the same way, and I think that we outnumber the bad guy.
The bad guy, whom history may show was ultimately defeated when families, neighbors, and mere strangers came together, turning heartache into healing through love. In Dallas, Marcus Moore, Channel 8 News.
And we are back here live at the second floor of the Dallas Police Headquarters. Here you see the photos of the fallen all being honored on these various stands. And we want to show you this. This is the honor flag we talked about earlier from San Antonio. It made its way up here today, and the honor guard who will stand here for the next 72 hours. This flag representing, as time would have it, as fate would have it, a moment in San Antonio that only underscores the risk that officers all over the country put themselves in every day when they clock in. We want to tell you about another special moment this morning in Victory Park Plaza that brought people in the community together. Look at these silhouettes. Look at these paintings, each of them representing the officers who died a year ago. And these paintings were painted by children, adults, people of all races from all across the city who came together at Victory Park this morning. This was an effort that we initiated, and we'll tell you that these murals, these paintings, will be auctioned off next Saturday at a gala. All of the money going to a foundation that assists officers and their families. Just imagine, John and Cynthia, so many of these families now without a loved one who supported their family in significant ways, and that money will help them and help their children.
You know, Ron, you were there this morning during News 8 Daybreak when all of these groups gathered there, and during News 8 Midday as well. And I know that one group in particular was a group of foster children who showed up today, because foster children deal with officers all the time when officers come to their homes and remove them from very abusive and neglectful homes. What was the feel there this morning, and as all of these people came upon Victory Park to paint and take a part in these murals?
You know, that was one snapshot that I think told such a deep, rich story of relationships between police officers and the community. We hear about, and we have heard about in the last year, fractured relationships. What we saw this morning were relationships that really represent community awareness, officers who really care, who reached out and who helped bring communities together. And that's what we saw with those foster children. Frankly, that's what we saw with everyone who came out to Victory Park. We have some time-lapse video of these murals all taking shape throughout the day from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. this afternoon. And this was an initiative that we came up with to bring people to Victory Park, which we hope is a place of community and gathering and unity and so forth. And here's the thing. Other stations came out and covered that event. That speaks to the power of the moment. So many people who cared so much to come out. And it's not often in this business when competitors will forego competition for the sake of covering something that is so incredibly heartfelt. And I think these murals really represent that.
Unified in those murals. Our thanks to you, Ron. And on this night 1 year ago, we assigned a couple of crews to cover the protest downtown. One of our photographers was around the corner when the first shots were fired.
Even as the bullets flew, he ran with police toward the shooting, and he shared his story with our Jason Whiteley.
A year later, it is a story he still thinks about.
Every day I think about the video. And not only that, but I also think about the fact that every time that gunman pulled the trigger, that bullet was meant to kill somebody.
This is the WFAA photographer.
My name is Josh Stephen, Assistant Chief Photographer.
In the middle of that march on July 7th.
I remember when I got there,
hands up!
There was a different level of emotion that I hadn't seen in a long time. A lot more anger, a lot more frustration.
Don't shoot me!
But it was when the gentleman on my left started saying, wait, wait, wait. That's when I started recognizing and really hearing the gunshots.
One thing that stands out watching his raw video, Josh runs towards the gunfire. Everyone else is running away.
My instincts are to follow the events as they unfold. I saw those officers taking cover. I staged behind them. And then when I said to myself, if they go, I go. And as soon as they started running, I fell in behind them.
His video that night, chilling, emotional, too graphic to ever air.
I offered up a lot of prayer after that, because when you start hearing the number of officers that were killed and realizing what those families are going through, you know, I've experienced loss in my life. And so I have a better understanding of what that is like to lose someone. People need to remember that, you know, no matter what level, what police department, whomever it is, they're all out there making sacrifices every day for everyone.
A reality 5 officers reinforced that night. Jason Whiteley, Channel 8 News.
Josh Stephen, Jason Whiteley with some very powerful memories. 1 year after the attack, we wanted to share those moments in a different way. This is a text experience for you. It's a unique view of how the ambush unfolded in real time. You can feel the enormity of what happened. We invite you to see it for yourself. The video is posted now on our WFAA Facebook page.
And as we head to break, we want to give you a full look of the Dallas skyline. This is a live look from HD Chopper 8 of the Omni, Reunion Tower, and the Bank of America building, all lit up in blue tonight to honor our fallen police officers. We'll be right back.
6 pops, right? And then another 7, 8 shots in a row.
And I think we just looked at each other.
And then we knew. I grabbed my camera, just hit record, and just ran. Little did I know, I was running right into the line of fire. And then I just heard right over the top of my head, and I hit the ground.
There was this current of adrenaline that didn't leave my body until probably 2 weeks later. When I was laying in bed at night, I just thought, how many other people are like me right now who were down there, just feeling that panic still.
Any desensitized person will feel something after that. I mean, it was insane.
I think I feel bonded with this city in a way that will never change.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it was really hard to separate Tanya, the journalist, from Tanya, the person who knew an officer who had died. When I got to the station, I didn't yet know if Lauren was alive or dead. I'll never forget standing in front of that whiteboard where we had written the names of the police officers. I've always said it would be hard to cover the death of an officer that I know. And it was. You know, my heart goes out to all these families. Doing the stories about the anniversary of the attacks is part of how we honor the lives of those police officers that lost their lives that night. And it's important to do.
Before last July 7th, the toughest critics of Dallas Police Chief David Brown were many of the men and women in his own department. For years, they complained that he cared more about satisfying City Hall than defending officers and their interests. Some openly demanded his ouster. But when officers began to fall last July, those differences were, if only for a moment, forced to the sideline.
It was the worst attack on police in America since 9/11.
There are no words to describe the atrocity that occurred to our city.
As chief, David Brown championed community policing, getting officers out with citizens, easing tensions. And it worked until July 7th.
The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers.
That night, Brown approved ending the standoff with a bomb attached to a police robot.
And we tried to negotiate for several hours.
Dallas still reeling, David Brown gave the nation's frustrated, embattled blue a voice.
We're asking cops to do too much in this country. Not enough mental health funding. Let the cop handle it. Not enough drug addiction funding. Let's give it to the cops. Here in Dallas, we got a loose dog problem. Let's have the cops chase loose dogs.
He also had a word for police critics.
We're hiring. Get off that protest line and put an application in. And we'll put you in your neighborhood.
Many heeded that call. Public support picked up. And even David Brown took notice.
We're very comfortable with not hearing thank you from citizens especially who need us the most. We're used to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So today feels like a different day than the days before this tragedy.
But the officers' concerns, their complaints did not stop. Within weeks, David Brown would resign, publish a bestseller, and become a national media consultant. But to this day, the rift between the former chief and his officers over his tenure remains a chasm. We have spent much of this week reflecting, but an entire nation honored our fallen last month when the annual ceremony for all who died in the line of duty was held in Washington, D.C.
Now, hopefully Dallas will not be there next year, but we traveled to see the powerful images, and we wanted to make sure you see them too.
Sure. Hey, how you going? Sorry for your loss. I was at Patrick's funeral.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
God bless you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, brother.
It is National Police Week, the 36th National Peace Officers Memorial Service.
We're here to celebrate them, not to mourn them so much, but to celebrate them.
To pay tribute to those brave law enforcement officers who gave their lives in the line of duty.
Dallas Police, through a horrific event, we became the type of department that would be known for standing up in the face of great tragedy.
Our nation's capital is better for you being here.
We are extremely grateful that the Dallas Police Choir came all this way at their own expense.
I'll be going down the road, I'll be going to work, I'll be all right, all of a sudden, bam, it'll just hit me.
I don't think we'll ever get over that, and it's days like today that we'll always remember.
Stop off or whatever.
Thank you. Well, I'll do that.
I mean,
good to see you, man. This has really brought back a lot of the memories, and a lot of people have asked me for the story again, and every time I tell it, it brings junk back up.
It's humbling. People recognize that you're a Dallas police officer. It lets you know that the majority of the people out there support the good work that we do and want us to recover.
And when it's our turn to look for his name, here's where we get the papers and what you saying, Willis?
Please help me welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Those incredible heroes who were so cruelly targeted for execution in Dallas, Texas.
Almighty God, we call upon your name tonight as we honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice.
All the way to the Z's. I'll go by states.
No, it goes by state.
There's Texas. 46W30.
This year, 394 brave souls joined the over 20,000 men and women to the National Law Enforcement Memorial.
From the state of Arizona.
From the state of California.
From the state of Arkansas, Robert Aaron Parker.
From the state of South Carolina,
Adam Dean Little.
Love you, buddy.
From the state of Texas, Brent Allen Thompson, Michael Joseph Smith, Patricio Enrique Zamaripa. It was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do in my life.
We knew when we signed up that there's a possibility that this kind of stuff would happen.
Give me the phone, please.
Sacrifice and memory is what brings us to this place every year.
You know, they got us this seating for a reason. We're going to enjoy it.
The names of these heroes are not only carved into that wall, but carved into the hearts of the American people.
51, 50.
Texas.
Present arms.
Aquí está. It's over here, but I wish I was waking up in my dream, you know. If I can give everything back just to have him here, I would. You go ahead.
Lauren B. Aarons.
Okay, I was doing good until right there.
Michael L. Kroll.
With what happened to us, it just reinforced that I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is the greatest gig in the whole world.
It's just hard, words can't say how I feel. feel like my heart's just shattered. He was my little hero, he was my little buddy, you know, and now they took him away from me.
We mourn with those who mourn. We grieve with those who grieve. But we do not grieve like the rest who have no hope, because heroes give us hope.
We're the representatives of courage and honor, integrity and bravery, and all the good things that go with policing, and we have to put it up for the world to see.
The Police Memorial in Washington, D.C. is a very beautiful place. Been there just a few years ago. Very somber, special place where we recognize our officers for their sacrifice.
That certainly came across in that report. And as we head to the break, a live look at the honor flag, which just arrived from Dallas from San Antonio after the funeral of a fallen officer there. This flag now on display at Dallas Police Headquarters.
I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this cannot be happening in downtown Dallas. It just seems surreal to me now. It felt like nowhere was really safe. People running and screaming and nobody knew like where the shooter was. And so when you see those names come across, and I knew 2 of them, to think that these people that I have known and worked with for so many years were gone, it was just very sobering. That night was very sobering and frightening. It changed the way I felt about my safety. And now I think I'm just more aware that it can happen anywhere. Even though I felt unsafe, I still felt that there are still more good people than there are bad people in this world.
So, how are you feeling today? How is our community feeling today? A year ago, right after the ambush, there was an overwhelming sense of unity among us.
Do you think we're better as a community because of what we experienced? David Schechter looks back at the emotions of that day and how things have changed. Good night.
Can you remember that day? Remember how it felt 1 year ago, how strangers joined together, how we worried Dallas would be the match that lit the nation's wick of anger and fear.
Yeah, we have an overwhelming anger problem in our country, for sure.
My mother said it reminds her of the 60s.
Many feel that that progress that has been made is now being turned around.
So I worry that maybe it won't change.
And yet, despite the racial conflicts laid bare, we clasped hands and showed the world we would not sink into hate.
It felt good to see the support of everybody.
And where are we today? Are we any different? Are we any better?
What has changed in a year? I would say not much.
Activists are still angry about the killing of unarmed black men by police.
There has been more bloodshed
So we must continue to march.
I would say we had the opportunity for real change because people's hearts were softened after this happened. But over the course of the year, we saw no justice happen.
The tension is still thick, and for the police too.
I think people are more sensitive to police and what they go through.
How does it feel as a police officer wearing a uniform to walk into spaces and automatically be judged based on your uniform and nothing else?
We did a lot of things right 1 year ago, and the words were rousing.
Let that which unites us be greater than that which divides us. We pray for our
But words are not where the hard work happens.
The way we acted in Dallas after July 7th was the way we should act every day of the year. We all came together, we prayed together, we stepped away from our promises.
We have to have these conversations with each other, and that's where the healing starts at.
Two groups of people saying two different things. And one last question. What will come from this tragedy?